Hi, I'm Rob Goldterman, and I'm here to tell you about why it's a good idea for us to colonize Mars. So, basically, the big idea here is that NASA plans to send uh, a crew on a mission to Mars around 2030, and it would be a one-way mission, meaning that the astronauts who are sent uh, wouldn't come back to Earth for the rest of their lives. Um, and Mars, Mars is a good planet for this first experiment for colonization for a number of reasons, as we'll see. And there's also going to be a good number of benefits that could come out of this mission, both for our society and our economy. And I'm also going to tell you about what NASA can do to help ensure that the plan goes as smoothly as possible. So, Mars has a lot of features that are pretty interesting. It has some geographical features, such as the largest canyon in the solar system, the Valles Marineris, and here you can see it in the bottom picture, and it spans almost the entire length of the U.S. It also has some of the largest volcanoes in the galaxy, and it has the largest impact crater as well. And there was also believed to be a former ocean in the northern hemisphere of Mars, as you can see in the top right picture. And in the top left picture, you see an ice cap, which was found on Mars. Mars has both spots of surface ice as well as ice beneath the crust. And there's also been methane found in the atmosphere, and methane on Earth is biogenic in origin typically. So there's still the question of life on Mars. So that makes it pretty interesting. But what is there to gain by going to Mars? Uh, there are values to the society, to our economy, and personal value in making a mission to Mars. And I'll talk about some of these. One of the values to our society is that a mission to Mars would help inspire STEM. And STEM stands for scientists, technologists, engineers, and mathematicians. And STEM is a big part of our society and driving our society forward, as I'll talk about in a bit. But as far as inspiring STEM, as we talked about, the geography on Mars is pretty special. It's got some uniqueness in the universe, and the size and grandeur of it is pretty inspiring, as well as the possibility for life on Mars, which would be pretty amazing and has a powerful ability to inspire a sense of exploration in people and searching for the new frontier and new life. And that could really go a long way into inspiring young STEM members, uh, because STEM emerge from the public, and the more STEM there are, the more society's benefited. Um, and the inspiration that uh, missions to the inspiration that missions in space can cause has already been seen back in 1968, before the lunar landing. The Apollo 8 satellite took this picture of the Earth here as it was orbiting the moon, and this is called the picture that saved in 1968 because it was essentially the first picture of Earth just hanging there in the backdrop of space that's ever been seen, and it inspired the environmental movement essentially uh, to begin. Um, but STEM certainly drives our society and our economy forward, especially in terms of technology. For instance, the scientists are the ones who discovered electron spectra, and then they eventually understood quantum mechanics, which led to studying chemicals such as silicon, which eventually led to our current computer infrastructure, because silicon is the base for all that. So our society is based on something that is a direct product of uh, people working in STEM fields. Um, and the venture-backed small businesses make up 0.02% of our government's spending, but they generate 17.8% of the income. So there's a huge profit to profit to cost ratio there that is created by these venture-backed small businesses, which are oftentimes tied to new technologies. Um, and society must continue to develop with the problems that we face with our global recessions, the climate change, and all the problems that we're going to face down the line. We need to keep advancing forward if we're going to find solutions to these problems. There's also money in a mission to Mars. The moon landing in 1969 generated $14 for every $1 that was spent on the mission, and this is talking billions of dollars. At one point in time, NASA's budget for NASA's budget was around 4% of the country's spending, which is a pretty huge amount. So there's some real monetary gains that could come out of a mission to Mars. There's also the development of new products. NASA has NASA research has led to development in better sports training devices, better solar energy collection, improved ultrasounds, better mechanical engine lubricants, personal alarm systems, and many other many other products that we use every day and that companies benefit from every day. Um, Exploration is also a part of human nature, and so there's some personal benefit that could come out of going to Mars. Naturally, humans are inclined to explore. We've seen it since the age of exploration, which was an entire century and a half, a couple centuries of people and countries that are just extremely competitive in exploring the new world. So there's some innate human draw there to exploring the unknown. And you also saw it in the space race, which was certainly like a national competition, but there was also some draw of the exploration there of outer space and getting to the moon first, like charting new frontiers and stuff. And even now, space tourism is starting to become a viable business, which has never been possible before, but now there's definitely a direct link to space that's being established, and there's definitely interest in humans going to space. And setting up a space colony would, of course, be a landmark in human history, and there's a certain draw there as well. So basically, what NASA needs to do to make sure that this project reaches its full potential is it needs public support. Um, we've seen in the past classic examples where a lack of public support has just completely foiled government attempts to get something done, like in the Vietnam War. And with the opposition to the war in Iraq, it makes it hard for the government to operate over there. And in an extreme example, something like prohibition, which the government thought was important enough to put into an amendment, but so many people were against it, and that it just eventually crumbled. Um, and we also saw public support in the space race and in both the first two world wars, and the government was able to operate much more efficiently um, just because the people were happy and so they got stuff done. So NASA needs to generate interest in this and show the public why it's a good idea. And one thing that would be very good for them to use is the internet, um, especially focusing on propaganda. an advertisement. Um, the internet is an extremely powerful tool that NASA has at its disposal today that it didn't have in 1969. And the news and the news media was basically on television, on the radio, and in the newspapers, and that's how people heard about the space race. But NASA has the ability to use the internet to get information out to a younger generation and people who are eventually going to be growing up to pay the taxes that are going to be funding this in 2030 and along down the line. So NASA has a powerful tool here to use advertising, especially with companies like StumbleUpon and Facebook and Google that can all get a lot of information out there pretty quickly to a lot of people. So NASA should focus on working with these types of companies to get public support for a Mars mission. So in conclusion, NASA plans to colonize Mars in 2030, and Mars is a good planet for generating interest in the public, and the mission to Mars would end up benefiting our society, our economy, and our personal lives. So in order to make sure this mission runs smoothly, NASA needs to create propaganda and advertisements on the internet in order to get the general public interested in the mission. So here are my sources, and that is all.